Hello and welcome to one and all. So in this class, we'll continue with the IPR 1991 policy. So the main feature of this 1991 policy, which is announced by the Congress government under the Prime Ministership of Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao, is the liberalized LPG model of growth, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So in the previous class, we have finished these features, isn't it? Abolition of industrial licensing. That is, only 6 industries are required to get the compulsory licensing from the government. Second, public sector's role diluted. That is, from 17 industries of 1956 through the 1956 policy. Now the public sector is having only 3 industries under its wing. And also, what has to be done regarding the public sector industries, all those things I have explained in the previous class. And MRTP Act. So now this MRTP Act is replaced by the more liberal Competition Act. So the monopoly companies can expand. And free entry to foreign investment in technology. So now the government is allowing foreign direct investment in some of the companies even to the extent of 100%. So there will be automatic approval of foreign direct investment in any major industries, high priority industries, which requires the foreign assistance. So up to that, we have finished in the previous class. Then the fifth feature of this policy is liberalized industrial location policy. So the feature of this, the meaning of this is, so the new industrial policy provides that in locations with, so we highlighted locations with less than 1 million population, there will be no requirement of obtaining industrial approvals from the center unless it happens to be in the category of compulsory licensing, except for industries subject to compulsory licensing. So what is the meaning of this subject to compulsory licensing? So meaning that if any industry is to be established, if any private sector want to establish their own unit in places where the population is less than 1 million, okay, so they can establish their own industry without any getting the required approval, from the government. That is, they need not have to get that compulsory licensing from the government if they are planning to establish their own unit in places with less than 1 million population. So because in earlier days, they have to get that compulsory licensing approval, which was taking a very long period of time to get that approval from the government. So now it will be automatically approved. Now they need not have to wait that long. They can establish their own unit wherever provided it is less than, they are establishing with less than 1 million population. Only thing is, it should not come under the category of that compulsory licensing. So the 6 industries we have mentioned in the first feature, isn't it? So as long as it doesn't belong to one of those categories, that 6 industries, so they can establish their industries in any area that which is less than 1 million population. Okay. And also another thing is, as long as it should not be of a polluting nature. So as if it is not a polluting nature, and if they want to establish their unit with in areas with less than 1 million population, they can establish. But if it is of a polluting nature, they have to establish their units 25 kilometers outside the city limits. So that was the policy regarding that industrial location policy. Okay. Then the last feature of this policy is removal of mandatory convertibility clause. First, let me write it, then I will explain to you. A large part of industrial investment so from where the industries are funding the capital for investment, mostly what they are doing, they are borrowing from financial institutions and banks, isn't it? So that's a large part of industrial investment India is financed by loans and from banks and other financial institutions. So this is how they are finding the capital. One of the major portion of the capital is by taking loans from the banks and other financial institutions, isn't it? So when they are borrowing the loans from banks and other financial institutions, before 1991, there was a clause, so which included, there's some clause called as the mandatory convertibility clause. Okay. While lending. So that means for this mandatory convertibility clause is that suppose if the industries, they were not able to repay the loan, then automatically the banks and other financial uh, institutions, they will become the shareholder of the company. So automatically it will convert it by from being a lender, they will become the shareholder of the company. So that was already included, that clause was there. Whenever the industries were borrowing loans from the banks and financial institutions, the one clause was mentioned that in the event of unable for the industry to inability to pay the loans, then automatically these banks and financial institutions that from being a lender, they will become the shareholder of the company. So it automatically converted like that. So now that is removed now. So the bank, now the financial, the industry, they need not have to worry about whether the banks and financial institutions also will become the shareholder of our company. Understood? So as of the 1991 policy, so according to the, so this was before 1991. So this clause was there uh, when the industries were borrowing loans from all these financial institutions. But as of now, according to the new industrial policy, so this is the the financial institutions will no longer impose this mandatory convertibility clause. So that means what? They no longer they can become the, automatically they will become the shareholder of the company. So now it is the private sector, they are having more freedom while they are borrowing the loans from the banks and other financial institutions. Okay. Okay, understood this. Okay, I repeat again. Earlier, when the industries were borrowing loans from the banks and financial institutions, there was a clause. If the industries were not able to repay the loan, automatically the banks and financial institutions, they will be converted into a shareholder. That is a mandatory convertibility clause. But now that stipulation, that clause is being removed. Now, even the financial institutions, they cannot become the shareholder of the company. So the private sector now is free. I mean, they're having more freedom and to borrow loans from the banks and other financial institutions without the threat of having that banks and financial institution, whether they will become the shareholder of the company. So these were all the some of the features of the 1991 policy. So now you can see that the role of public sector drastically reduced and the government has been liberalizing the private sector. So now what is that connection with that LPG now? All the abolition of industrial licensing, all those things are like liberalization. Liberalization basically removing the restriction. Even now, this mandatory convertibility clauses remote. All these are liberalization. Of course, your next topic is liberalization. I will explain detailing what it is. So liberalization means relaxing the rules and regulations. So that is liberalization. And privatization. So when the government equity is reduced from 100% to 26% and all, or even lesser, what happens to the remaining 74% of the of the equity of the government? So that has been handed over to the private sector. I mean, not directly like that, but it is reduced means it has been handed over to the third party. So that is privatization, inviting the private sector. And what is this globalization? When the government is allowing the free foreign equity and technology, I said even to the extent of 100%, the government is allowing the foreign equity and technology. So that leads to globalization of the economy. So that's why it is the LPG model of growth. Okay. So now there are certain positive impact are also there and the negative impact are also there against this policy. So first let us check what are the advantages of this 1991 policy. So the positive impact. So the first one is the industries started concentrating on research and development to bring out the creativity in product design. Now, because earlier the public sector was the monopoly, there was no competition for the public sector. Now there is a competition from everywhere. Public sector is facing the competition from the private sector, and the private sector is facing the competition from the foreign companies. So automatically they have to bring the new code. They have to create new product design. For that, continuous research is required. So then now the industries are forced to concentrate more on research and development, which is very, very good for the country. Okay, so that is the first advantage. Then the second one is the quality of the product is given importance. Again, because of competition from the foreign companies also, the quality is at most important. So the quality of the product is given importance right from manufacture till it reaches the ultimate consumer, because the consumer will not accept, isn't it? So anyway, now the consumer is free to get any variety of product from anywhere because of the globalization. So if the industry has to survive, the quality has to be good. Then only the consumer will purchase. So the quality from the right from the manufacturing level to till the last stage, the quality is given importance. Then, so finally, what people will get the quality products in the country. And the next advantage is there is an extensive growth of infrastructure, such as these are all the positive effects, such as transport, banking, communication, etc. Because if the government wants the private sector to assist in the industrial development of the country, the government has to provide all this necessary infrastructure. So without the assistance, without all these facilities, it is not possible for the private sector to develop their own establishments. So not only the private sector, now because of the globalization, even the foreign companies, they are also participating. So without the proper infrastructural development in the country, none of the foreign manufacturer is going to come and invest in our country, isn't it? So because of this reason, it was necessary for the government to develop the infrastructural facilities in the country. So all the transport, banking, communication, all those are developed by the country. Okay, then the third one is, the fourth one is free flow of foreign capital on account of FDI. On account of FDI. Okay. So now, yeah, because the government has allowed 26%, 50, 51%, 74%, even 100%. Now we are without any restriction. So wherever necessary, we are able to get the additional capital because of the free flow of foreign capital, and along with the foreign capital, we are getting the foreign technology also. So the capital in the country is being increased. So more and more amount of industries can be established, or the existing industries can be expanded. More employment that leads to more employment opportunities in the country. So because the capital base is increased, that creates more employment opportunities in MNCs. Okay, and since the people are getting wide varieties of commodities, there is an increase in standard of living. And it is not only wide variety of commodities, because of the competition, the price also has to be competitive. So if the price is too high, the consumers will reject. So people are getting wide varieties of commodities at a very, very competitive price. So that increases the standard of living. And because of the employment opportunities, the income generation is also competitive. So implementation of better technology. So as I mentioned, foreign investment comes along with the foreign technology. So we are having the forced to have the better technology in our product manufacturing, in marketing, in the administration, everywhere the better technology is being used. Okay, so these are all the positive effects of 1991 policy, or the positive effects of the LPG model. And now coming to the negative impact. There are always the two sides of the coin. So the negative impact is, there is first one, tough competition for, so competition in a way it is good, in a way it is bad. Tough competition for domestic industries. If the domestic producer, they are not able to compete with the foreign companies, then it will be very, very difficult for their survival. So there is a tough competition for domestic industries. And the next one, opposition from trade unions. So the public sector, they were all having the trade unions. What is a trade union? Trade union is a voluntary association of workers. So most of the public sector, they are having the this voluntary association of workers, which is called as the trade unions. So they fight for this trade unions, fight for the better conditions for their for the workers. So better working conditions, better wages, so all those things. So now if the public sector role is decreased, if it is handed over to the private sector, then the workers will not have that much amount of security, isn't it? So there is a all these trade unions are opposing against this privatization. Okay, then the third one is, of course, it will lead to unemployment, because in the sense that all these MNCs and the private sector, they are more interested in profit. So when they're more interested in profit, and we also mentioned that quality of the product is very, very important. So the quality of the product is can be upgraded only if it is wherever possible, only if it is mechanization is included, then only the quality will improve. So then only, though the private sector, they will get more and more amount of profit. So because of that, there will be they will be replaced laborers with machinery. So that will lead to unemployment in the country. And the next one is, and also the public sector, the staff members in the public sector are huge, but the private sector will not employ that much amount of labor force. So that will also lead to unemployment in the country. And indiscriminate use of natural resources of the domestic country by MNCs. So they will, this is like a capitalistic system. So wherever, whichever commodity, whichever service is giving them profit, the MNCs will invest only in those kind of products and those kind of services, isn't it? So the natural resources will not be used for the genuine, whatever the commodities or services which are genuinely required by the citizens of the country. So that's an indiscriminate, improper use of natural resources in the country. And finally, distortions in same thing, distortions in production structure. So if there is indiscriminate use of natural resources, distortions in production structure, meaning is same. In the country, the industries will not be producing the genuinely required products of the citizens of the country. So there will be so many lopsided development, lopsided production structure. Only the luxurious commodities will be concentrated. So all those things will happen in the country, because the private sector, they are mostly interested in the profit. Okay, so these are all the positive and the negative side effects of the 1991 policy. So you will get the question critically. It's a very, very important 10 marks question. Critically examine the industrial policy resolution of 1991. Okay, this I'm repeating again, is a very, very important 10 marks question in the board exam. Okay, so this is the answer for this question. Hope you have understood the meaning. And also, so this is the last of the industrial policy resolution. So after this, there was not not much of a changes in the pattern of industrialization in the country. We are still continuing with the this liberalization, privatization, globalization introduced through this policy. Still the private sector and is dominating. Okay, so if you find this video useful, so please like, share, and also subscribe. And please don't fail to mention your suggestions or doubts in the comment box. Okay, so until my next class, take care. Bye bye.